This episode of EduTechGuys is brought to you by PRP Group, relationship-driven storytellers for the education market. Craft compelling narratives and understand your audience with marketing intelligence and PR for pre-K through 12th grade and higher ed. Get noticed by the right people in the right places. Our approach centers on knowing your audience so that every story becomes part of your journey and the start of a trusted relationship. Get more information at prp.group.
On today's show, we talk with Jacob Hanson of PRP Group about marketing, branding, and getting your story out there. All that and much more on this episode of the EduTech Guys.
You're listening to the EduTech Guys. EduTechGuys.com.
Hello and welcome to this episode of EduTech Guys. I'm David Henderson.
Hey, and I'm Jeff Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, turning on, downloading, all that great stuff. Looking forward to an awesome episode this go-round.
Hey, and if you're looking for us, you can find us on the web anywhere and everywhere. Just go to Google, put in EduTech Guys, EduTechGuys, and you're going to find us out there staring back at you with those hungry eyes. Little ladies there for you. We're on all the social medias, you name it, Instagram, Twitter, X, I don't know what it's called anymore. Just pick an alphabet letter and use it, and that's the social media platform that we're on.
That's exactly.
Schmitter, Twitter, Blitter, Flitter, I don't know. Who knows?
That's right.
Instagram, Banksy, Poo, we're out there. But hey, really glad to have you today. We're going to have a really great show talking about stuff we'd like to talk about, storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is going to be a really cool show in that it's going to focus on sort of the other side of education. You know, a lot of our shows deal with us that are actually in education, and this is going to focus a little more on the other side.
Yeah, the other side of it. And I think you're going to learn some really interesting stuff about the PRP group and what they do and who they're out there to help. We have a lot of edutech industry people that come on the show, and this show's kind of for them also. It's actually a lot for them. This is kind of what the PRP group does, is help them get that data and learn about the schools they're working with and a little bit more in-depth and personable information. So it's going to be a really great show. Stick around, and we'll take a quick break right now. And when we come back, we'll talk with Jacob Hanson right after this.
This episode of EduTech Guys is brought to you by PRP Group, relationship-driven storytellers for the education market. Craft compelling narratives and understand your audience with marketing intelligence and PR for pre-K through 12th grade and higher ed. Get noticed by the right people in the right places. Our approach centers on knowing your audience so that every story becomes part of your journey and the start of a trusted relationship. Get more information at prp.group.
Hey, welcome back to the EduTech Guys. We're excited to have our next guest on the show. We're going to let him tell us who he is, what he does, and all that good stuff. So here we go.
Hey, thanks so much, guys. I'm thrilled to be here. Hello, everybody. My name is Jacob Hanson. I am the CEO and co-founder at PRP Group. Many of your listeners may know us, may not, but we originally started out as PR with Panache a little over 12 years ago. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling while we're here today. And that really is kind of where my mom and I founded the company, really based in the idea that a strong story will stick with someone and influence, what they do, how they act, or the decisions they make. And so, that's really been something that's been prevalent since forever. So we've kind of always been known as modern day storytellers for the education market. A lot of what we do at PRP Group is really helping to create awareness around solutions that work in the classroom, in the district or school office, things along those lines, companies that work within education, and making sure that they're telling the right stories at the right times and the right places to the right people, all that good stuff. I know that we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. That really kind of the other piece of what we do at PRP Group. I feel like we live in a nuanced and fun but super challenging world in education. I can't even talk to lay people about it. They don't understand it. I'm sure you guys get it. It's funny that their eyes just keep getting wider. But understanding how to navigate the world that we live in is so critical now. And so a lot of what we do with the marketing intelligence services we offer is really to take the deep dive with companies who are trying to better understand who their audience is, not just how they sell to them and how their product fits in, but truly who that person or who those people are, what their entire world looks like, and how can they, make an impact for the better in their world, and maybe sell them a product along the way.
So I think and it's one of the things that sticks out to me from what you just said, when you're working with companies, Jeff and I have been in this for a really long time. I mean, we're talking, over 60 years of combined experience. And it's funny to me how many companies, especially if they just reach out, they cold call you with no idea as to what your school is about, what your district is about, where, any type of, where any type of vision or mission or any of those things. But not only do they not necessarily know that on the front end, and I can understand some of that. I mean, good gravy, there's only so much research you can do. I get that. But by the same token, how many companies don't even bother with that during the process? And I think that's one of the things that really sticks out from what you've just said here.
And I think it's always been important. And I think to a certain extent, companies try. It's, how much beyond just slapping some lipstick on a pig are they going, with that effort. I was at a conference that Tech and Learning put on last week, called the EdExec Summit. And I was on a panel with a former superintendent and a former educator, that we were talking about the changes that we need to make as marketers and sales folks in education due to the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And while, we can't create every experience to be an Amazon-like experience, given the dependency on technology through the pandemic, that's really what people expect. They expect you to anticipate their next needs. They expect you to know what they need tomorrow before they even have to think about it. And that was really the consensus, is if you want to stand out, if you may not even have the best product, but you're the best partner and you're the best person for, that district or that school. And they can help you improve your product, but they're going to buy from the company and the person they feel is going to partner best. The product comes along with it. Of course, I'm not saying you can develop garbage here. They're going to look at that, but I think I'm making my point how important it is to take that time to go the extra mile.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you gain that knowledge. What are you guys doing to prep these companies, prep us? If we said, hey, we need to market to these folks, how are you pulling in that information? You've got your secret sauce, so you don't have to share the secret sauce. But let's talk about how you do that, how you prep a company and get right to the point of, like you said, they want us to provide what they're not expecting yet. So how do you guys do that?
Well, so I think that's a really loaded question because it could mean a lot of things, but it's a good question. So I don't really mind giving away the secret sauce. I really truly believe my team and my team members are what make that sauce secret. Anyone can do this. Yeah. It's just how you put it together and the care you take. And so, I think a lot of it starts just with how we approach the work with our clients. That my leadership team has. Folks aren't seeing you, but these guys, they must have started in grade school if they have 60 years of combined experience. They're not looking like they've got that much experience. Yeah. But I'm in a similar boat with my leadership team in that we're able to kind of disperse that. So we do have somewhat of that seasoned tour guide, been around the block. We've been through dozens of buying cycles. We've seen trends come and go. We've seen, No Child Left Behind. We've seen ESSER. We've seen all of these things. And so it does start with, I think, a solid foundation in just how this engine works, and being able to tool up your team to ask the right questions, talk to the right people, and look in the right places to validate information. And I think it's that last piece that people really forget about. And so, I think if you ask most companies, they've created their buyer personas or their ideal customer profiles and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they're pretty good. I don't want to knock anyone who's put that effort in. Kudos to you if you've even gone that far, because many don't. But where they're stopping is they're building that based on the institutional knowledge they have within their team or within their organization. They're not ever testing their assumptions. They're not questioning the things they're putting in there. They're just taking with best intentions. I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong. It's just they're missing an opportunity to see, is this actually right? Are we really doing the right thing? And so a lot of where we go is collecting information, combining it with what we know, what we've learned, and then utilizing whether it's their partners, customers, even prospects, board members, partners. It really depends on the type of company and the persona we're trying to really identify. And we go and basically grill them to test our assumptions against, how do you feel about this? What do you think about that? When we're doing this at this time, is this actually true? Are you really doing this? And it's wild to see how many companies are at about 85%. And that's where they stop. And for a long time, that's been good enough, or at least good enough to get them where they want to go. And it's those folks who are going to go that extra 15%. I know this can get expensive. We don't do we can do focus groups, but many of our clients, we just don't put that in the budget. It's expensive. We've created some ways to bring active administrators into the process. If clients want to have, we call them anonymous advisors, basically bringing an active administrator into the conversation. They're anonymous, so they can basically say, this is just flaring up my BS meter. You guys need to knock it off. Like, you don't do any of these things. Yeah. But in any case, I think it's then really looking at it in the fact that, all right, if we solve just for how we sell our product and we talk to this person about our product, or are we really solving for what does this person's world look like, assuming it's a 12-month employee from July 1 to June 30? What are those months and what are those quarters? What should we be doing to help them to make their lives easier, whether that's through content, it's just through sometimes like a friendly email. Hey, I know you're crazy busy. I'm thinking about you and you're doing a great job. Yeah. Obviously that you need to be a little more friendly to be able to send that, but just knowing what that person might need from you, instead of trying to figure out a way to get them to click on a CTA or to give you an opportunity to sell to them. They're people too. And so if you really think about how do you want to get marketed to, I don't want to call them at dinner. And you look at your phone, it's like, I think I know who this is. I think I've got to take it. And it's that robo voice. And you can't even yell at the person because it's the dang robo voice.
Yes.
Exactly.
And, the miss there is like they could have got a sale if they'd have known how to reach out to me and if I actually needed what they were selling. So in any case.
Yeah, I get that. To me, that's the biggest thing. And you're exactly right. The pandemic was the defining line. And everyone had this higher expectation, and it's become more personable. Even in the workplace, the educational entity especially. I mean, we've always been personable in education because we work with parents day to day. We work with students day to day.
Bless your hearts.
Yeah. So it's it's a battle is what it is. But no, it's not. But yes,
the parents.
Yeah, let's be honest. So, but that's the same way we feel because we're constantly we wear our hearts on our sleeves. We really do, and that doesn't change for the administrators or the people we're serving. So, I like to say lately, that being your hero, I want to be the star of my story. And that's what you guys are doing actually to make sure that they can understand this is how you make your parents feel like they're the star of the story. This is how you make, the school district feel like it's the star of this story. That's really great. So let's jump into storytelling. Let's talk about your idea behind the best story that works for marketing in education.
Before I get into tactics and things like that, I really feel like any type of story, anything like that, it needs to be genuine. And, a story that you're telling in marketing or in sales, it may not have all happened. And so only parts of it may be true, but the other parts are kind of, leaving things up to the imagination or those kinds of things. I guess it depends on what type of story that you're trying to tell. But I think it's that genuine that you can feel in that content and whatever that is, a video or a blog. But to your point about the pandemic, I would rather watch a shaky YouTube video of a parent telling me something I really care about than some polished, edited, commercial grade video, on Parents 101. I think it's the same way that not everybody may like my style or like how I communicate, but I've been a good storyteller my whole life, and it's because I can put my heart and be genuine in that story, and that at least enough of it of what I'm telling is true that it's it makes it really fun. But if it obviously in our industry we need to be not telling fairy tales, so I want to come back to maybe like a best practices or an op-ed or something along those lines type of a story that if you're genuine and you're really speaking from the heart, as far as I'm talking to a classroom or a school of my peers, they're going to feel that and they're going to, lean into that content. And so I think starting there, I think also is what's the end result? What are you trying to accomplish with what you're doing with the story? sometimes we're trying to influence an action. Sometimes we're trying to influence a feeling. Sometimes we're just trying to be memorable, get a laugh or something like that. I think folks sometimes get stuck on stories need to be 1,200 words published in a publication. No, it can be a 300 character tweet if you do it right.
Yeah.
Everything you do can kind of be part of a story or be told in that way. And so I think it's just a unique way and a memorable way to communicate.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. And it's funny that, I don't know how many people this relates to, but it especially here lately, and certainly during the pandemic, but even a little before that, and definitely after. If you think of a particular company who has done extremely well with reaching out to various audiences and being funny and sometimes poignant and making a point about it, and we obviously aren't sponsored by any of these people, but to me, Wendy's is one of the companies that immediately jumps to mind, right? They've got their whoever is running their social media, and they get their roast tweets going, and their and some of the marketing stuff that they do. And people actively seek to get roasted by them because they're so good at it. So, those are the kinds of things that, is it going to make Wendy's sell more hamburgers? Not directly, but potentially, because people go, oh my gosh, that was such a great tweet. Hey, we're getting something to eat. And, well, there's a Wendy's, and you just kind of subconsciously put that together. And I think that to your point, I think that's one of those things that, frankly, I think a lot of companies, and I'm just going to say even other entities, school districts, since we're talking education, I think they tend to forget that. Not everything has to be, in your face advertising. It can be that subtle little thing. It can be those little things that reach out to the community, to that customer, and touch something, whether it's an emotional response, whether it's a funny response, those types of things. And I think that you make a very good point in your description. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I also want to dunk some fries in a Frosties right now.
I know, right?
Right now, so like Wendy's, if you're listening, it worked. Yes. I would love one of those and some fries to dunk it in. But I digress. I think if we're looking at like another company, that if I was to give an example of how a brand is doing their brand well, not everyone can pull off what you just talked about for Wendy's, nor do you have to. Right. Humor does not need to be the way to do it. There are lots of other ways that you can stay true to your brand without having to be humorous or push the envelope. Mm-hmm. I think it's just one way, but Lego is probably my absolute favorite. If you haven't gone on their Twitter feed to see how they've responded to like missing pieces and things like that, it is hysterical. So if you're listening and you need a good laugh, or if you want to just flag this, hop on by their customer service every once in a while. It's hysterical. It really is, and they're good too. Like they make good with their customers and everything. But I don't know. My son loves Legos, and we were missing a piece one time, and I was like going crazy because it's 1,000 pieces or whatever, and I went and I forgot what I was even doing there, because I was going to tweet them and ask them about it, like, do you have? And I just read through their feed because it was so great. But in any case, humor works for them. I think that if you look at Coca-Cola and the polar bears they do over the holidays, Budweiser and the horses, it's brand affinity. It's about creating a relationship with your audience, with your brand, and it's not, to your point, direct sales. It's when you're reaching in that cooler and there's an 18-pack of Coors or an 18-pack of Budweiser and you just saw those horses, you may be more likely to grab that 18-pack of Budweiser. And maybe we blanked this out because I'm not supposed to talk about beer. I'm sorry. But
it's all good.
It's all good. I think you don't always have to. All right. Well, I don't think you always have to think about it as humor. It's what is your brand's identity and what is the affinity you want to create between your brand and your audience. And some companies, just given the lane they live in or the neighborhood that they're in, you always have to do it through the lens of your product or through, a much more dry way because of the where you live. And that's okay. Find out what your audience wants from you. How can you just make sure that they feel better after they've interacted with you? What that means on social media, in an email, they got a call from a salesperson, they read an article about you, whatever that is. How do you just make sure every time they feel better afterwards?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been...
and Frosty.
there have been companies that I've worked with, for decades, and that I've they've been vendors. I've made purchases through them, and one of the reasons why they've been such a part of my purchase legacy is because even though the representative may change over time, people get promoted out or they go find other jobs or whatever it is. I've built a relationship or with those different individuals. I can remember there was one guy that I dealt with a really long time, and he said, "Hey, I'm getting promoted, but there's a new guy coming in," and the three of us had a conversation, and so I got to know the other guy, and through that, building those relationships, through them doing that with me, there were times where they weren't necessarily the lowest price, they weren't necessarily the quote unquote best product, but I went with them because I had that relationship with that, with the company and with those folks. And that has made all the difference compared to, I've also had the opposite experience where, there are some folks that I just won't, won't do business with because I've had such a negative, experience with that particular company or with certain reps that they had or what have you. And it's, it could be just a personality conflict. It could be a company conflict. It could be whatever it is. But those little things, to me anyway, make all the difference in the world.
I've got to ask this question.
Go ahead.
Along what David's talking about. So what's it like for your team to work with a company? To me, this would be your job sounds like a lot of fun to me. So, we're working with XYZ company who's selling XYZ EdTech piece or education piece or textbooks, who cares? To me, the fun part here is to getting to know that client so that you can help them build that story. That's got to be so satisfying to work in that environment because it's not really a job. You're kind of, You're helping out your fellow human, build that story for their company, and then you get to watch it blossom as you help train them. That's got to be a hoot right there.
So it really is. And when I was in college, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. So I envy both of you and appreciate what you both do. I spent a semester in the classroom and was like, there's something else out there for me. I just knew I couldn't cut it. So I'm glad that I get to contribute to education in another way. And I do truly believe that the stories we help create, the articles that we help get published, or, the story arcs we help form, they are influencing results in the classroom. They're influencing happiness, whether or not administrators are staying in their jobs, and I may never exactly get to reach out and touch that and know exactly where I'm making a difference, but it is fun to know that's happening. And the companies that we get to work with, while I love the members of my client family, the people that are there, the brands themselves, it's just a big whole, heap of do-gooders. And, folks that just get up and try really hard. But I'd be lying if I said, working with them is my favorite part. I actually like working with their customers a little bit more than I would like working with them. So we get to do a lot of the work with the company, understand their goals. What are we trying to accomplish? What's the purpose behind the PR or the media relations or whatever that might mean, what we're doing? How does it fit into the bigger picture? But then there's parts of a story that companies just can't authentically tell ever. And that's really like what's actually happening, boots on the ground, whatever that means, in the classroom, in the central office, whoever coaches are using your tool, whatever it is, until you have that person that is living it or leading it or using it, saying, here's actually what's happening in real life when kids are here or when school's in session or whatever the case may be. Folks like you two are always going to say, oh, that's great, bud. You're a vendor. And you don't really know what's going on. And so being able to capture the authentic voice and the authentic chapters of what those customers are doing with that product, the service, whatever it might be, is really my favorite part.
Yeah.
Because those people are actually making a difference in kids' lives every day. Like the things that they're telling me about have helped kids to read, have allowed kids to not get held back, improved graduation rates. Like that's real tangible, like, I don't know, I'm getting goosebumps. It's just really fun to get to work and hear that from, and with everything going on. And I'm a parent, so I know I can be difficult at times as well. But like you said, you show up with your heart on your sleeve, ready to work every day. So I think that's probably, an area that I get a lot of joy from. But at the end of the day, it's the companies that I work for that are paying me to do that work. Mm-hmm. And so that it wouldn't happen without them recognizing that these stories matter and that this content matters. It's really fun. And a lot of it is joyful. We've got a client that has a significant launch coming up here that I wish I could tell you guys about. It's just so exciting and so fun.
That's cool.
But you'll know about it in a few weeks. But it's just, again, kind of on the cusp of something else that's going to move the needle for, people or populations I care about.
Yeah. So I have a question. So do you guys ever work with school districts? Because right now and I know I'm going to let you answer that, but right now in education, that's a big deal. And so as a district here, maybe we have a millage coming up or a bond issue, and we've got to tell our story, and we have to make them excited about voting for those taxes. And we need more parents showing up at all the events that are happening. And it's time to rebrand all these schools. Used to, you could just throw out your logo and go Bobcats, go, and everybody's like, hey, we're going to be a Bobcat or a Wildcat, or, this is what we're going to do. And that was enough, but that's not enough anymore. And it's time to do that. So could you address that? Could you talk about, working with school districts to help them find who they are now, rebranding?
Sure. And it's interesting. I just read an article. I think it was in Ed Week. I'll try to find it and send it to you guys if you want to read it. But it highlighted how much the increase in having cabinet level communications leadership at districts, since before the pandemic and now. So I do think as a trend, we're seeing that school districts are not only prioritizing, but finding money to bring someone in-house that can help with community relations and help with storytelling. I think you both probably know those folks wear their fire hats 99.9% of the time. And so I get to work with those folks a lot, and they say kind of what you both said, like, your job sounds really fun. It's like, yeah, we don't really have to deal with, any of the stuff you do. I just get to tell really fun, good stories and make everyone feel good. Right. But as far as working directly with school districts to help them, we do work with them in varying capacities. So during the pandemic, I had more superintendents or board chairs or someone in the C-suite reach out saying, we need your help. And, if they type in at PR for Education, my company comes up for those types of searches. But with the things that you're talking about, and for those that aren't, that are by where I'm at, it's a bond or a levy, millage, same thing. Community by community, that can vary so greatly who you're talking to and who lives there. Mm-hmm. A firm like mine, we work more at a national, regional level from a trends perspective. We can help with that arc. We can help with what's important. What do parents expect to hear from you as far as education systems and what's going on in other parts of the world or other parts of the country? What should your brand do? That we can help with that, but they are, in this case, going to be much better off finding a firm that knows their neighborhood, knows the media in their backyard, knows the landscape of politics, unfortunately, of where people fall on social issues. Whether it's a local firm or they hire someone internally, that person is going to be a much better navigator than I am to make sure that they understand what all those landmines are and things along those lines. I can do that work. It's gonna take me a little bit longer, and they're gonna pay me a little bit more to get to a level that I'd be comfortable telling a superintendent that here's what you say publicly. It kind of scares me a little bit, just even saying that out loud. But I think just the underscoring of how important this is. I live in Minnesota. We've been an open enrollment state since before I was born, so I'm used to, my whole life I've seen billboards up for school district advertising specific programs. They try to poach kids across lines. There are programs here that have had kids relocate from across the country to come to go to, specific gifted programs and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So none of this is new to me. We were one of the first states with charter schools, non-public that weren't part of public school districts. And so competition is always better. And it's really, been done well here where they compete with each other. And that's, we think about crisis, and that's kind of where you were going. It's also, are you losing enrollment? Do people want to live in your community? Are the folks on the outskirts opting to go to the neighboring district or to a private school? That's PR that you need to be looking at doing as well, and communication, storytelling too.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny to hear from someone who, like you said, you've had that your whole life, and here in Arkansas, it's just now becoming a very boilerplate issue. We've had school choice to a limited degree, and the new governor that was just put in place, that just got elected, she is basically upending the whole thing, and over the next 3 years is essentially making the entire state an open enrollment state, and it's tough to navigate, whether you're the local district or if you're not just the local district, I should say, but also the surrounding districts. Like you said, you've got folks coming from all over the country who are coming to your schools. I would imagine over the course of time there have been the opposite effect as well, where you had a school that wasn't up to snuff, and they probably aren't around anymore. And I think that's one of the concerns that, folks in Arkansas have. So, navigating that, communicating that, working with your local community to get that message out, to promote what is positive about the district. But also, I think anyway, it would also be one of those things where you would also need to carefully and in a calculated manner communicate those issues that are the areas of growth as well, and talk about that growth and say, hey, this is a shortcoming. Not saying it that way, but this is a shortcoming. We know it is, and here's what we're doing to address it. And I really appreciate. I just want to say before we go too much further, I really appreciate your frankness and honesty about. For the listeners. What your company does and doesn't do, because it would be very easy, and I'm just going to say this, it'd be very easy for you to say, oh yeah, we can do all
take
of
your
that.
money, yeah, but
right?
that's genuine, right?
Really
that's
appreciate
beautiful.
the fact that you told it like it is.
Our listeners will appreciate that.
Yes.
Also. That's one of those things. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I think it goes back to some of the stuff we're here to talk about, that, I want to be helpful. And in order to do that, I have to be truthful about what I can and can't help with. I've had superintendents, a couple of them even ask, like, can you just help me interview these firms? Can you sit in and tell me what questions to ask? I've never done this before. I never knew I had to do this. And, those are things that I do as just a favor to help these folks out. If I can keep that superintendent for another year without turnover, that's another year of foundation building that district gets. So that's I'm happy to do that kind of thing. But like I said, it just makes me super nervous. These leaders we talk about, superintendents, or these folks that interact with the public, and they're just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're people. I feel like anything I tell them, I'm throwing them to the wolves sometimes. You just can't win for losing in the climate that we're in some of these areas. And so one of the things that I also would encourage your listeners, like if this is an important thing or something you're thinking about, who in your community are your allies? Who have you already partnered with? Who are you doing career tech programs with? Businesses in the community, the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, who are your allies that are already working with the district that can stand with you and help support you? I think no matter where you stand politically, there are loud voices that are, I think, a little too far on either way that need some centralizing. And if you have stronger voices from the community that you're standing up on stage with, or you're presenting to the board with, or you're, going to a media interview with, it's a lot different than if you're standing there alone trying to tell that story. So I think this is especially true for folks that are in rural communities where, the news sources are limited as far as a localization. And so I strongly encourage you, if you haven't, think about, who are your allies in your community that are already partnering with your district that can help support you in areas that may be of contention or need improvement or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really great stuff. So, and I have to say, that's great stuff for any company that's looking for you guys to it's great basic default information across the board is what that is. So, really great question here. I hope it's a great question. The companies that you work for, the companies that hire you to do their PR, do you look for those ones? Like, I know Remind is one of your companies. You guys do some work for Remind, and what a great company to work for, because that is direct influence to the parents, to the consumer. And so that can't be that hard to help them understand, hey, this is your job. This is what you're trying to do. So I guess my question is that, do you guys actively look at, are you sitting down in the bullpen on Monday mornings and you're looking through companies going, okay, we need to hit these companies here because they've got a great story to tell. They just don't know it yet. Do you guys do something like that? To me, that would be the bullpen experience. It would be a lot of fun. It's like draft time at the NFL. Who are we looking for? Who are we going after? That kind of thing. Is that a hard question?
It is and it isn't. I'm trying to determine like how much I'm comfortable revealing about myself here.
That's what I figured I was doing. That's what I figured was happening.
So my career prior to getting into education and specifically into the work that I do now was really sales, marketing, and then PR had to kind of bring along with it. And so I've always had like a sales spirit along with everything I do of just that mentality that salespeople have. And so to a certain extent, there are companies that I would say, man, I'd love to work with them and that kind of thing. But I have never cold called or cold emailed anybody ever from a PR with Panache email address or ever PRP group. I just won't do it.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that if I am thinking hard enough and doing my work well enough, that I know what kind of content or what kind of message or something that's going to make them pay attention to me or notice me. And I'm going to know where to put it and when to put it there. And it may not be that company, but someone like it that's going to see it. And so I may not ever say, I want to work with this company because they're so great. But because of the things that we do, the good work that we do and the relationships we build, I end up getting to work with, I think, the best people and the best companies versus maybe ones that I think that I see doing good things. Mm-hmm. I think just by putting good out, I don't know where you guys sit on this, but I really believe strongly in the universe, the greater power out there. And if you put as much good out there without any expectation of anything in return, it'll get back to you and it'll find a way to return that, many times over. And that's really how I've navigated like sales in that bullpen. It's not how do we close this client? It's what are we missing? What are we not doing that we should be? What do they need from us that they're not seeing that would make them sign up for this or talk to us or whatever, reach out to us or whatever the case may be. But through that approach, I've gotten to work with, I think, some of the absolute best people and best companies, that are in business in education today. I think not about like how much good they're doing sometimes when I really look at how I feel about a client and I look at what do they do when things are going wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm usually in those really nitty gritty, crappy, this blew up in our face conversations given the role that I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the amazing thing is that I see time and time again, people choosing to do the right thing, even when it's the hard thing to do or the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't find myself having to convince people to do the right thing. I'm helping to make sure they're positioning it the right way because they are doing the right thing. And so, I think maybe that's a little soft answer to the question that you asked, but
you answered it correct. There you go. So, and this is what's interesting, for you to put your heart out there like that. That's exactly what any of us, any company, any educational entity, any human being wants to know is that your heart's leading that in the forefront. And it's very obvious talking to you that's exactly how that's your MO. So that's a good MO to have. Yeah, man, that's a good MO to have.
I get to kind of live my best life when I come to work. And not only do I get to do all the things we're talking about, I have, wonderful teammates that I get to, work on all of these things with, and that I get to see do all of this great work for the members of our client family. So it's awesome that I get to be here and share all these things. But I wish we could get a glimpse into kind of how the machine runs. It's fun to work at PRP.
That's cool.
It's not always easy. We do have some challenging moments. Like it's not all peaches and cream, we do work hard and all that stuff, but it's fun.
Cool. So I hate to be the time cop here, but one last thing folks that are listening, companies, people, anyone, give us all the information if they want to pick your brain, if they want to talk to you and talk to your folks. And so what can you share with us?
Sure. So if you want to just pick my brain and you've got some questions you think I can help with, you can go to my website, prp.group. If you click on our team page, I'm kind of right on there. You can book time with me right there. If you want to, reach out for more of a, let's talk about something larger.
Yeah.
You can always go to the contact page, but you can find me. I'll get you my LinkedIn and all of those kinds of things. But
yeah.
I also host the Education Insider podcast for PRP Group. And so if you have ideas that you want to cover, if you heard anything in here that either you want me to have the guys on our show for, or that you want me to dive deeper into, let us know. I believe that this came up at the conference last week. Someone said, like, I don't want to give up my secret sauce. And it's like, what does it matter? Unless it's like proprietary code, like I get that. I understand that. I am very conscious of that type of information. I have to protect that, but, give freely and folks will realize that secret sauce is only secret because of you.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. As we like to say, there's plenty of grass in the whole field for everyone to graze. So that's awesome, dude. Hey, yes, definitely. If you're listening, all this information will be in the, about for this episode, so you can get that information from there. Hey, Jacob, thanks a million, man, for coming on the show.
You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate the time. Just keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate all you do for education.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much to Jacob Hanson, who did not, by the way, give us any rendition whatsoever of Mbop. I'm a little disappointed.
You and your Hanson,
my Hanson fixation.
Fixation. That's the word I was looking for. There was an F in there, but I didn't know that fixation was the one I was looking for.
None of them F words.
That's it. Fixation was it. Yeah, thanks again to Jacob. Really, really personal guy. Really knows his stuff. If you're looking for a company to help your company, an industry specialist, they're the folks to definitely look at. And we're glad you're listening to the show. I was trying to think, are we going to be anywhere live soon? I guess the next one will be ACOT in Arkansas.
Probably so.
Yeah, that's in Little Rock sometime end of October?
End of October usually, yeah. And then after that, though, we got FETC. Now, there may be something in between, but FETC back in Orlando.
In January. Yeah. So if you'd like to be a part of that, reach out to us. Let us know how we can help you during those conferences. And if you'd like to be on the show and you're listening to the show and you go, I want to be on the show, hey, reach out to us, Jeff at EduTechGuys.com or David at EduTechGuys.com or just Tom Shoes. There's the Tom Shoes plug. Or
throwing it way
out there. So here's one more. Contact at EduTechGuys.com. You can find us all those places or just on the web, EduTechGuys.com. Hey, it's been a great episode. Been a great show. I'm Jeff Madlock.
I'm David Henderson.
We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the EduTech Guys, edutechguys.com.